Have we started? Are we on? Okay, this bottle isn't open. And that's because if it was open, I couldn't sell it to you. Because you guys are gonna buy all of this. And that's okay, that's what we want. But we're still doing these videos, even though I know I'm gonna sell all this. If I don't sell all this, I'm the worst wine merchant in the world. Because this is the Castello Romitorio Brunello di Montalcino 2019. Now, 2019 is a bang-up vintage in Montalcino. It's an outstanding year and the best year since 16, which y'all remember, and 15, which y'all bought a lot of. So we waited out 17, we waited out 18, we got into 19, and here we are. Now, the problem we're encountering with 19 is the fact that some of the prices have gone up, right? You know, Brunello isn't the relatively affordable luxury wine that we were used to, you know, back 10, 12 years ago. Montalcino's growing up. And as it grows up, it's making more single vineyard wines and fancy wines and this and that, and we're seeing prices escalate. That being said, this is not necessarily one of those wines. And if there is an escalation in this price, it's only because of the quality involved. So Castello Romitorio, this is actually, it's a new old property, right? Because first of all, look at the art, look at the label, right? The guy who runs the place or owns the place does all the labels. Sandro Chia bought Romitorio in 1984. And at the first, you know, he was kind of doing what a lot of these cats in Montalcino did back in the 80s, which, you know, Montalcino was full of like Milanese bankers and Tuscan people that use it as like a weekend getaway. And, you know, Montalcino wasn't taken really seriously until we got in the 90s, into the 90s. And then all of a sudden, everyone was like, oh, Montalcino is like a fancy place. We should probably make good wine from here. And then all of a sudden, the wine started getting really good. But Sandro was part of that group that like, he kind of used the vineyard as like this wonderful place to look at and do his art and create and make magic and get away. And he wasn't alone. Well, starting in the 1990s, things really started to change. And by the time he got into the early 2000s, when his son Filippo was old enough, then things got really interesting. So Romitorio really started kicking it into another gear in the early, 2005, 2008, 2009, 2010, Romitorio really started working on it. Nowadays, Romitorio is absolutely banging. And here's another funny anecdote with Romitorio, is that their vineyards are all in the Northwest, which the Northwest is one of the prime spots in Montalcino, but it wasn't in every vintage type spot, right? Because in the south of Montalcino, it's warmer, and you get like these warm, yummy, warm fuzzy, you know, Chachi Piccolomini, these types of wines that really deliver every vintage because of the sun and everything. In the Northwest, you have more elevation, it's a different exposure, it's cooler, so only in certain years. But in those years, then the wines like Chiusa, Biondi Santi, and these sorts of things really started popping. Now, Romitorio is up in that area. And this Northwest now, with climate change and everything else going on, the Northwest is like the spot. So you got Montosoli, and then just over from Montosoli there. And it's a really special place to grow Sangiovese. A little more elevation. You have to work more in the vineyard to create something special. And this is where you get like these kind of glossy, cool, silky, polished Sangiovese wines. They're not the biggest wines, but they're the Sangio from Montalcino that has more of like this Pinot-y palate feel. Gorgeous, elegant, refined, like umami style Sangiovese wines that come from this Northwest area. And Romitorio is the poster child for that now. So much so that in Wine Spectator's current 2019 Brunello di Montalcino report, this is the second highest score of the vintage. Okay, 97 points, which kids, if y'all follow Wine Spectator nowadays, you know someone gets 97, it's like, what, right? Like that is a big ass number. There were two wines that scored 98 points. Those wines, one of them is $130 and you can't get it, and the other one's $250 and you can't get it. What does that leave you? This is your Wine Spectator Brunello di Montalcino wine of the vintage here. Well under $100. We're talking I think, I have to look at the math. This is all new. It's around $60. So you get one of the highest scoring Brunello Montalcinos from Wine Spectator ever in a great year for around 60 bones. That pretty much should seal the deal for you. But on top of that, let me remind you again, we tasted this wine with Filippo. It is one of the top wines that we've tasted of the vintage. But you know us, we've only tasted, 40, 50 wines from the vintage so far. So we don't have quite the perspective of some other folks, but still, needless to say, Romitorio is firing on all cylinders. This is a no-brainer wine. If you don't buy it, I'm not gonna say dumb, right? Because I got in trouble for saying other people were dumb before. I'm not gonna say you're dumb if you don't buy it, but if you don't buy it, you're dumb.